If you look at like the history of Tottenham, you know, you've got 14 managers there under this dictatorship, which is what we'll call it.
Yeah.
So if you look at the pattern, it kind of all stops with one person, doesn't it? So at what point does he start to take accountability for himself? Is it now, or is he finally understanding that he can't sack another manager because he knows the repercussions, despite the fact that actually this manager has been backed probably way more than various others? I mean, Pochettino deserved this amount of backing.
Yeah.
You know, I think under Ange in the last 18 months, I think it's about 350 million that we spent under him.
Yeah.
Pochettino never got that. Why did we not back Jose? Why did we sack him a week before a cup final? Antonio Conte, of course, that had to then end because of what he said, but he was absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
There is Martin Jol, Harry Redknapp. So it's actually quite funny that now his back's against the wall, that this is the manager that he's choosing to back.
Yeah, I also think that Postecoglou is kind of a brilliant, almost foil for Daniel Levy in a sense, because it's almost like he's his human shield. It's like, 100%. As long as things are going if things are going that badly on the pitch, he thinks that either the attention is going to be directed towards the playing staff or like the manager, when actually a lot of people are siding with Ange, or even if you are, you know, I think the Ange out sentiment is growing as well. I think so many podcasts have kind of done various polls over the last months, and it's dwindled quite significantly over the course of the last couple of weeks. And I was with you. I thought when we were 3-0 down at half-time to Everton, I thought it was gone. But I think Levy maybe recognises that he can't sack another manager because we can't go through this process all again. I also think part of that is wishful thinking, and I think he actually just doesn't really care. I think that he doesn't, that all of that heat that's coming towards him, he will just brush it off because he's like, you should be grateful almost for kind of what I've given you. And it's like, well, we pay incredibly high season ticket prices.
I think it's second highest, isn't it?
Manchester United.
Exactly. And like you mentioned the back in there, and don't get me wrong, like Ange has been given quite a lot of money to spend. He had to rebuild that squad in terms of trying to bring in a whole new style of play. We also sold Harry Kane, so that's kind of inflated our net spend. This summer we went through a massive rebuild in terms of getting a lot of the players off the wage bill. I think a lot of people are also thinking it wishfully that one of the signs that he might be looking to sell the club is by reducing the wage bill. But Daniel Levy has done that consistently for a long period of time. And I think people can put up with the excuses when you're building a new stadium and you're getting told and you're getting promised like further down the line it's going to come tomorrow. It's like, well, once we move to the new stadium, there's like that tweet after the Champions League final, it was like, this is just the beginning. And since then we have got worse and worse and worse.
At the end.
Yeah, and we have, don't get me wrong, I think the reason why, like, I feel like I'm still quite a glass half full Spurs fan, right? I feel like, you know, there have been genuine reasons to be optimistic. Under Conte, we got into the Champions League. Under Ange, some of the football that we've been playing, some of the results that we've had, like, there is a belief that you can have there, but it's like, that all gets taken away when you realise that these owners' best interests aren't on the football pitch. And like I said, we have spent money under Ange. Any team can go and spend 50, 60 million pound on a player in the Premier League. Look at Forest. They were talking about spending 50 million on Cunha like a week ago. And that was what really frustrated me about that, was because if we were in the same position that Forest are now, we would not look to capitalise on the position.
Absolutely.
We would be, that's good enough. It's clearly working with what you got. Yeah. You're not factoring any potential circumstances around any injuries or a lack of form. And that was the thing under Poch. We were always like 2 players away. Conte, we were like 2 players away. And since then, we got further and further away from that. Even in this window, it's like, I'm not expecting Tottenham to go out and sign 5 or 6 players, even if we've got, 11 out or whatever it is. That's not realistic in January. I know City have gone out and signed a lot of players in January, but like,
Villa have added to their squad. I mean, you can do deals in January.
You can do, exactly. I think we've almost been gaslit in a way.
Absolutely. The only reason Kinski's come in is because Fraser Forster's got injured.
Yeah.
I think what you just touched on, Ben, like, about the lack of ambition, that is so clear, because the ambition off the pitch in terms of building Tottenham to be this, you know, powerhouse as to what they want it to be in terms of a venue or, you know, an F1 track or a concert stadium, all of these things, that's great. But this is a football club at its core. And I think that's my personal biggest gripe when it comes to someone like Daniel Levy and Enoch, is that you don't put the football club first, because without that, you wouldn't have all of these businesses. You know, they want to build a hotel and do all of this stuff. Well, that's great, but I'm not paying my money to come and stay in your hotel. I'm not paying my money to go and watch Beyonce or whoever else. I care about my team that's on the pitch, and that's the biggest part that's failing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't really care about any of that stuff in terms of the fact that he's doing it. If we're going to take advantage of that financial position, we generate so much revenue, but we've got, I think it's the lowest percentage ratio in terms of turnover to wage spend 42% in the Premier League.
Is the lowest,
crazy.
Especially out of the big clubs,
Yeah, and also I think out of like the top European teams as well, it's by far the lowest.
And Deloitte, we were ranked 9th richest club. We went down from 8th to 9th. So we've gone down 1 spot.
Okay.
9th in Europe
And also,
you just don't see that.
That revenue that came out was a yearly revenue that we made without even being in Europe. Yeah. We were making over £500 million without even being in Europe. And it's like, we're not taking advantage of that financial position. And that is where people can get frustrated. You can be grateful for what Levy has done in terms of putting us in this position, but it means absolutely nothing if we're not going to take advantage of it. It's not arrogant to say that Tottenham should be a team that is challenging for Premier League titles in terms of what we've been promised. Not in our current state right now, but that is down to the ownership and that lack of ambition. As long as we're staying in the Premier League and getting in the Champions League is great, like that's what they care about. And it was evident, I think, on Sunday, like full house against Leicester, we just lost the game, but the bars are still packed after the game. Yeah. The club shop queue is still, rammed out the door. Like it's like, we're still making the money hand over fist and we're teetering above the relegation zone.
Well, this is the biggest problem, isn't it? This is what we were kind of speaking about before we started, that, you want to send a message, you want to send kind of the tone and where you're at. And obviously the protests, the banners, that is absolutely what you want to be seeing at this point. But you can't then go to the bars and give the money back or go to the club shop. If you want to make a statement, take away the one thing that, Enoch and Levy love the most, which is money and revenue. Instead of going and drinking downstairs on the concourse, go to the Bill Nick, go to the Antwerp Arms, go and give back to small businesses, go to Chicken, like do something. Just don't give your money back.
They need it far more than Levy.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, we're all season ticket holders and you're going to be giving your money either way because he's got you over a barrel in that sense. So don't give them any more money than you have to. They've got money. He's taken home a bonus of 6.5 mil or something.
Which is the most out of any club chief in the Premier League.
So next time you lot go and have a beer, just go to the Antwerp.
I'm doing dry Jan anyway, so it's all good.
Well, luckily Jan's nearly over. Yeah. We'll stay with Levy for a little bit longer because next month it will be 24 years since he took over the reins. We've had one trophy in that time. We've got to a Champions League final because I guess we'll count that as a trophy because it'll be the only time we ever get to see it, won't it?
Yeah.
Sir Alex Ferguson described negotiating with Levy as worse than his hip replacement. So this is the kind of guy that we're dealing with. This is the kind of guy at the top. And you want him as a businessman to be that ruthless. But when it comes to the footballing side, that's what you don't want. Obviously, he brought in Johan Lange. Like, that's okay on the recruitment side of things. We don't really hear too much about him. We certainly don't hear about Scott Munn either. Yeah. The whole point was that Levy would be stepping away from the football operations, but we're all well aware he's still got fingers in the pies. Yeah. So at what point does Daniel Levy have to step away? When does he step away, or where are the people telling him that he has to step away? You've recruited these people to do that job. You have to step back.
The problem with Levy, going back to what Ben was saying, he's reactive, not proactive. Yeah. And you just think about the rings he's jumped through in this club in the last 5 or so years. He didn't back Pochettino, but then he decided, let's go and get some winners in Mourinho and Conte, and it didn't work. And now he's gone, let's go all full circle and back a manager and a project. And that's where now he's like more nervous than ever. And all you got to do is look at the teams in and around us. Manchester United, West Ham, us, and even Everton have just, got rid of their owners. We're all in the same sort of thing, and we're all in the same sort of place in the table. So it's not, it's not a coincidence that that's the case.
No, it's how not to run a football club mini league, isn't it? That little section of the table.
And I think the turning point, and as soon as you said it, it reminds me, there was a turning point in 2017. We played Liverpool at Wembley.
Yeah, 4-1.
4-1. Yeah. And that's where Levy goes, well, this is all right. We've got Dele Alli, we've got Harry Kane. And what did Liverpool do? They went inside Van Dijk and Alisson and won a Champions League against us. And that's the difference. And then they've stayed there and we've gone down there. And that's what it's going to be. And then on the way home from the game, I was flicking through the programme on the tube, and the first...
Did you buy the programme?
No, I get it for free.
Okay, good. Make sure you're not buying it.
And I was looking at the names, Chairman Daniel Levy, Scott Munn, Johan Lange, and I literally looked at all those names and thought, what do these people do? What is Johan Lange really doing? He's bringing in some people for the future, but we need stuff for the here and now. And even Scott Munn, I'm not sure one thing he's done, I don't know if he's a technical director or...
He's the Chief Financial Officer.
Well, he's obviously getting the wage bill
Chief
down.
Financial, Chief Footballing?
Yeah, Chief Football Officer.
Chief Footballing?
Yeah.
Chief Footballing.
Well, to Levy, football is finance, isn't it?
I guess so. So they both go hand in hand, don't they?
So I just think, like, you reeled something off there. Levy's decision making. And the thing is, where I realise is people will go, and I think Gary Neville said it, Daniel Levy is a good businessman. He's not a good businessman because he's got £1 billion to £3 billion asset because he values the club at £3 billion, and it's currently devaluing as the days and weeks go. Because if we do get relegated to this championship, there's not going to be any suitors. Like, his own thing is literally crumbling in front of his eyes. And if he is a fan of this club, he should care. Because gone are the days of your local, person owning your football club. It's for the rich and, all people over the world, the Americans, or an investor from the Middle East. And that's the problem. Like, because if he does sell, we're going to have another argument over that because we've seen what's happened with Jim Ratcliffe turning up with Manchester United.
Yeah.
There's no solution.
It's a difficult one with that, though, because it's like a lot of people would say, well, you know, the grass isn't always greener, but it's like when you've been in this situation for so long, we just want someone to come in who is going to take care of the football club and have the football club's best interests at heart. And Levy will say that that is the case with him because it's like, look at what I've done. Look at this brilliant stadium that I built. It's like, as long as if we were challenging for things, I'd rather still be at White Hart Lane. And I think,
100%.
I think, look, the stadium move was the right thing to do. I think it probably was the right thing to do. But again, it's about taking advantage of the position that you are in. People will say, yeah, but Tottenham are in loads of debt. They can't spend the money. We can spend the money. We are, you know,
we are so clean, aren't we?
When it comes to
unbelievable.
we could go out and
clean.
spend £400 million tomorrow if we wanted to because of the situation. When was the last time? Look at Man United right now, right? They're in a situation where they might have to sell Garnacho. They're trying to actively sell Rashford because of the profit and the PSR and like the wages that he's on. They're trying to get him out. There was even talk of them selling Kobe Mainoo at the start of January because they need the money. When was the last time Spurs had to sell a player other than Harry Kane? And that was basically because we drove him out. We didn't have to sell Harry Kane, but we felt like we had to because he wasn't going to sign a contract and we wanted the money. That's the situation that we found ourselves in. It's like we've put ourselves in such a brilliant position and we just do not take advantage of it.
We're like I summed up the other day on one of my videos. It's like having a Ferrari on your drive, but you don't take it for a spin, or you don't even fill up with petrol. There's this asset here that's got, because people will applaud Levy, like, you know, Tottenham. I remember when Klinsmann they say he saved the club from relegation. And he has done well to build the team. We broke into the Big Six in such an organic way. And you can applaud him for that because, you know, Alan Sugar before that, it wasn't a great ownership then. But the problem is, Levy wants to dine at this top table. He wanted to join the Super League. But he's got, you know, the menu's in front of him. The menu's in front of him, and he's gone, no, they're not for me.
Yeah,
it's just.
He wants to be. That is, I think, the biggest problem.
Laughed out of rooms.
You can absolutely commend everything he's built. He has put Spurs in a position that they can challenge. They can sit at that table, which I know some fans will say they can't because they haven't won anything, and it's an endless cycle. But he has built Spurs to be in a position where they should be doing all of that.
Yeah.
But you also have to open the purse strings a little bit. And where we actually have spent money, it's not on talent that can come in straight away and make a difference. And I think that is always the frustration. It's like, you can see what they're trying to do again, like buying young talent, someone like an Archie Gray, a Bergvall, Vuskovic. Like, there is talent there, even Jed Spence, who's now come out of the cold. There is a spine of the team there that is available. Even Kulusevski, we can put him in that because Solanke's maybe a little bit older, but there is a spine there that can be built around. Van der Ven as well. But it's like, where is the quality? Where is like the world class
or leaders
that can come in and do that?
I think you spoke about leaders there on the pitch and off the pitch, but that comes from the top. That lack of ambition to win comes down from the top and creates this, you hate to say it, but the kind of Spursy mentality of not being able to get over the line because it's not built into us to win. So many clubs have had to try and have a massive culture shift over the last few years. Look at Arsenal and what they've done. You know, the Cronkies. Arsenal hounded, I can't remember the name of the older one and the younger.
Stan Kroenke's
and who took over? It was the younger one that took over.
Josh Kroenke,
came in and took over because he was far more in touch with what the fans actually wanted, and that was when it changed. And that just does show you that you can, if you make enough noise, you can make an impact. My thing is that Levy doesn't really care and he's got a lot of yes men around him on that board that will kind of just buckle to his decision and won't put the pressure on him to actually be in touch with what the fans want. Also, like, you mentioned earlier about what Sir Alex Ferguson said. When was the last time, in terms of negotiating with Levy? We had so many players pinched off of us. Michael Carrick, Berbatov, when we were trying to get somewhere. Even Robbie Keane went to Liverpool. Kyle Walker, even those kind of times. Obviously, most recently, Harry Kane. Tottenham under Levy, as far as I'm aware, other than maybe when we signed Carlo Cudicini from Chelsea when he was at the end, Spurs have never bought a player from a big six club.
I think that was a free as well.
It was free,
yeah.
It didn't even
or like Gallas on it.
Yeah.
It's like, but Spurs, look at, and again, these are two players that could potentially be surplus to requirements at Arsenal in shortly. Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko. When would Spurs ever go and say to Man City, all right, if you're not, I'm not saying he's the right answer, but Jack Grealish isn't getting minutes here. We really want him. Spurs wouldn't pay the wages.
It would never happen.
Rashford, well, I mean, you could debate whether Rashford is the answer, but in theory...
But someone like Grealish would have been... Well, actually, the Grealish thing is a perfect example because when he was at Aston Villa and Villa were being taken over and they needed the money, he didn't want to go to whatever the valuation was.
And that was
I think he
negotiating
offered
with
20
Aston
million.
Villa,
Yeah,
who
it
were
was
in the
10 more.
Championship.
James
It's like-
Maddison, we looked to sign years ago when he was
Yeah.
still at Norwich. Ended up signing him like 7-8 years later.
Yeah.
Spurs never strike when the eye is hot in either end, whether it's selling or whether it's buying. Like, you know, if you think about it, sold Kyle Walker, fine, but then reinvest it.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had Kieran Trippier at the time, who was actually quite good. They got worse and worse.
Yeah, that's
as we
luck,
started to
that's
buy
luck,
them.
isn't it? Because you've just
Complete
got, oh,
luck.
here's someone
Yeah.
here.
Well, he
Complete
bought Aurier, didn't he? But it was like you've just sold England's best right back and brought in someone who was
Yeah.
a bit of a fiery character at PSG, who was incredible for us at times, but largely pretty average and
Yeah.
a bit of a troublemaker.
And then you go Emerson Royale, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So at the time of capitalising on selling Kyle Walker, you know, 50 million quid at that time was
it
a fair
makes
amount of
sense,
money.
yeah.
back
And
then.
that was literally at the peak time where I said earlier about like being two
squad
players away. We just
needing
finished
refreshing.
second.
Yeah.
And you can always appreciate that you're not going to, you know, you might not stay there forever. You might have seasons where you finish, if you're finishing second, you might finish third or fourth. And we did that. We went second, third, fourth, and kind of got progressively worse. And the Pochettino project kind of dwindled and got drained because of the lack of investment. And Poch said it, that famous quote was like, it's all well and good having a nice house, but if you're not putting the furniture in it, what's the point? And, you know, I think he's kind of doing what Postecoglou is trying to do now. It's like, he is telling people what he needs, but trying to go about it in a way that isn't as on the nose as what Conte did. And as a manager, you kind of have to walk that line a little bit and toe the line. But right now, you can say what you like about the past and where Spurs haven't invested. What club in the Premier League who has got 12, 13 players or whatever we've got out, and bear in mind, these aren't kids. We've got no kids that are injured. People will say about Timo Werner, right, being an injury, but Timo Werner's on 160 odd grand a week. We signed him on loan again. He's a squad player who we could do with right now. Werner, Johnson, Solanke, Romero, Van der Ven, Vicario, all these players injured. We've signed a goalkeeper, and we are 5 days away from the window shutting while we're recording this. What other club in the world or in the Premier League does that? No one.
No.
Because at least I know some people have argued towards me saying like, but no team is signing anyone. But it's like, but we can, but we're not.
And we're not. And like like we said earlier, you can have the argument that it's hard to do business in January.
Oh, yeah.
You might pay over the odds, but we might get relegated, and this is a serious conversation.
Yeah.
Actually, like it's mental
It's
to be talking
negligence.
about
It's
it.
just negligence,
It's
isn't it?
complete negligence from the very top.
Even relegation candidates like that Big Sam might have saved at the end of seasons, like your Cardiffs or whoever, like Neil Warnock, they'd bring like an emergency
try.
loan
Yeah.
striker in to like
Ipswich have bought a
keep
couple
them
of
up.
players. Ipswich have bought a couple of players. The teams around us are buying players. Aston Villa and talks
Even
apparently
they
with Chelsea for
could
João
have played.
Felix.
Why have we not gone and tried to get someone like Cunha? Why not?
We just
No,
won't.
because
We get
we won't.
laughed out of the room.
Of course, well, but if someone like a Nottingham Forest, who, okay, at the time of recording are in a bit of a title challenge, at least they're showing some ambition.
Yeah.
We've been in that before. I remember under Harry Redknapp, we went and brought in
Ryan
Ryan Nelson and Louis Saha, who was at the back end of both their careers.
Saha was fun.
and Harry Redknapp needed that backing. We've had that with Poch so many times where you need that signing, you need that bit
You
of
said
star
about
quality.
sales. We sold Moussa Dembele when we could have had him in that Champions League final, but we
Yeah.
had Sissoko and Winks. Like, there's
One of
just
the best.
faults the whole way through this.
God, that seems like it is a long time ago when you look at that picture, isn't it?
Why did we
Really-
select that one?
Really sad.
This is just the beginning, apparently.
Yeah, it's the end.